You're listening to Wanderlust Diaries, the ultimate travel podcast for solo female travellers 40 and beyond who are ready to explore the world. Join me, Terri Reynolds, where we talk all things travel and why it's so important and what's stopping you from getting out there and exploring the world. We'll discuss the steps you can take now to fix it, empowering you to ignite your curiosity and set your heart free so that you have the confidence to travel wherever you want, whenever you want. Offering insights, tips, hacks, and remarkable women's stories along the way. So come on, grab your passport, pack your sense of adventure, and get ready to be inspired. Whether you're a first-time solo traveller or a seasoned globetrotter, Wanderlust Diaries is your community of like-minded souls, uplifting and supporting women over 40 who dare to explore. Welcome to today's episode of Wanderlust Diaries. And today, my guest is Jho Jho Binks, and Jojo's with me now. So thank you so much, Jojo, for agreeing to join me today on today's podcast. I'm looking forward to learning all about what you've been up to with your travels, and you have your own podcast as well. So really want to get into that, and with all the links for everything that we're going to talk about, I will put them all in the show notes so that our listeners can go on and listen to your podcast as well. So over to you, Jojo. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks for having me. Yes, I do have a podcast called I Can Talk Underwater by Jho Jho Binks. But that's, this podcast is all about Terri, but I'll introduce myself first. So I live in Melbourne, Australia. I'm in my late 30s and I've basically spent all my money on travel. If I didn't travel, I would have a lot of money, but life is too short and I would rather have memories than money in my bank account. So I really look forward to this interview, and hopefully some of you will be inspired of my travel experience.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure they will be. And I love that. It's like once you get the travel bug, there ain't no going back, is there?
Yeah, so I started traveling when I was younger. It was actually on a cruise, and because we're poor uni students, and we found this cruise. There's no windows, but we're like, don't care. It cost us $600. All inclusive, like with food and travel and that. So the four of us went in, and there's only like me and my other friend, and we just had the best time. I guess being poor, we weren't eating properly. We just have this buffet of food, fine dining every day, and that was the first time I experienced caught the travel bug. So we're able to go to different islands. I went to New Caledonia, and Vanuatu, and it was the first time I was able to go to a foreign land where it was just a holiday. I didn't have to go to uni. I didn't have to work. And after that, we went on cruises twice after that. We just loved it so much. And then when I got a full-time job, and that's when I actually started traveling overseas on land, which is more expensive. But it was, I guess, when I started like going out as a single person, like I've traveled as a single person as well as a couple. And there are, I guess, pros and cons on that one, and I find that they're different type of travel. Do you find that as well, Terri?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and everything you just talked about. There's so many things now I want to talk about. It's like, I want to go back. I want to backtrack a bit. I just want to backtrack to Melbourne. Mm-hmm. So which part of Melbourne are you in? Because when I was traveling, I was in Australia for 6 months. The biggest chunk of that was in Melbourne. And I was staying in St Kilda.
Okay.
And I was staying in a hostel there where I cleaned at night the kitchen, so I got free board, which was fantastic. Amazing. But I was also working in the Espy as well on the front there, the hotel. So I was waitressing in there. Oh my God, the stories I could tell about that place, honestly, now. So I would be working there practically every night, and then I would go back half cut to the hostel, and I'd have to clean the kitchen.
Yeah. St Kilda's
I'm going to get found out, and I'm going to get chucked out of here. I was there for months and months, and it was one of the best times ever. You know, I really loved being in Melbourne. Like I said, I
Yes.
got loads of stories I could talk about. But so, which part are you in? Where are you in Melbourne?
So I live in Yarraville, so it's in inner
Oh,
west, about 6.4 kilometers to the CBD, which is really good. I love
yeah,
where I am because it's not as busy as everywhere else, but I'm only 6 kilometers from the CBD. So Uber from city to here is only $21,
yeah,
and I can ride to the beach. So
yeah,
like driving to the beach is only 10 minutes. It takes me 20 minutes to ride, and everything that I want is in this area. I
yeah.
just I love my lifestyle in Melbourne. St
Great,
Kilda.
isn't it? Because you just want everything to be accessible, don't you? You know, everything with that's easy to reach. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Being a single person, I want to be able to access the nature as well as the life,
yeah,
the nightlife, and I've got both of those worlds. And I'm
yeah.
not a country person, like live or suburbia person where they live really out, and it takes them an hour to get to work, and but they love the big land. I put me in an apartment. I don't like cleaning, so I just want to be in a small apartment, and but
Yeah.
closer to the CBD. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you cleaning as well. So that's great. So we've got an idea of where you are. So now you mentioned cruising for a start.
Hmm.
And that must have, I mean, how old were you at that, at that age as well? Like being let loose on your own. I bet it was just such a great sense of freedom, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was 19, went on
Mm.
the cruise, and I guess I
I was
was
married at 19. So,
oh wow.
oh, the freedom.
I was definitely a young 19-year-old, like definitely not mature. And I guess it was kind of good being on the cruise because being young and stupid and away from your parents that telling you what's the right thing to do, were kind of like we're able to party and be stupid, but in a controlled manner. So we
Yes.
didn't really like, and there were cameras around everywhere. So if someone gets in trouble, there's like
Mm.
a security guard to help us.
Yeah.
I don't know, break a fight or someone trying to hit on you inappropriately. So there'll be like always someone out there looking out for us, and that was a really good taste for an overseas trip until I guess we grew up a bit, like mature a bit to go
Yes.
out and do go overseas. Most Australians do gap year, so they
Oh,
go
yeah.
from high school and then 1 year and then they go to uni or whatever they want to do, like full-time work. But I didn't do a gap year, so I went from high school direct to uni.
Yeah.
So I when I finished uni, I was I guess everyone has done Contiki tours in Europe. Everyone goes to Europe and do Contiki tours, and I didn't get to experience that because I was at uni. So I did,
Yeah.
like the cheap way, which is the cruise. So I still
Yeah.
kind of experience going overseas, but not spending that much money, I
It's a
suppose.
great way to start, though, Jojo, because it's a
Mm.
learning curve, isn't it? And we all kind of start off at the bottom. There's not many of us that can go straight in and have
Yeah,
spend thousands of pounds on a trip. So we all have to start at the bottom. And oh my God, what that does is it makes you appreciate when you do get a better life, more money,
exactly.
and you can afford those better things. It makes you appreciate, because I always feel that start off from the bottom, so that when you get there, you appreciate what you've been,
Yeah.
because it's a fantastic learning curve as well.
And also, like, I mean, because we were, I
Yeah.
was so poor at uni. I was very skinny, not because I wanted to, it was just because I just didn't have any money. I remember having a budget of $10 a week for food for 3 years. I didn't even know how to survive. So when we went on a cruise, we had this like unlimited food. We just appreciated the goodness of I mean, not
Yeah.
growing up, not rich or like very poor or
Mm.
middle income. It's just the appreciation of little things in life. I had that at a young age, and it was kind of good that, I mean, sometimes, especially when at uni we have these international students, they come to uni in their mercs, and really all their rent is paid for them, and they still fail uni because the parents don't really care because they will pay for their tuition fees. I always I guess somewhat jealous that they've got it so easy, where I had to work at night and then still got $10 a week on food. But
Yeah.
those like little luxury for 7 days on the cruise, we just had the best time of our lives, because it was just that level of appreciation that we don't get this often. And I think
So,
that's advantages of not growing up rich, because
yeah.
little luxury you appreciate it more.
Yeah. No, I absolutely get that. And I mean, I'm from an age where, you didn't really go traveling. If you weren't married by the age of 21, 22, you were on the shelf. And if you didn't have a
Yeah.
baby by then, you definitely were, So I'm from way back. And I love the way it's changed, it's fantastic. So I did all my traveling later in life, I literally switched it around.
Yeah.
So for that trip then, that cruise, because that fascinates me, to go away that age, to be so confident to do it. And I know you weren't on your own, but you were with some friends, but still very young to do that. And it's something really out of a bit out of your comfort zone, I suppose. What was the transformational change for you at such a young age? Once you'd gone and done that, obviously had the time of your life, but what did you come back with?
Because I guess when I was younger, I was very suppose introverted, and I wasn't very social. Um and then I felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. I felt a little bit more outcast. So I didn't really build that, that social confidence that, you know, I was just watching the Mean Girls last night. Those three girls that they have this like big network, and everyone just loved them, and they just know the social cues and how to talk to people. And I didn't really have that growing up. And then I go on a cruise where everyone's on holiday, everyone's so friendly, and then I could talk to anyone about anything, and then everyone was just talking back to me. I was like, what? People are talking back to me, like talking to me, and everyone. And I think that was the first time where I realized I'm not weird. I was just, I can actually put two sentences together and someone be interested in what I would say. And
Yeah.
I think that was like the moment where I realized, oh, I can actually talk to people and socialize and have a good time and have a party with strangers, and which I didn't really have in high school or uni. Like I
Yeah.
have a little bit more social life in uni, but not in that extent. Like I said, I felt like I didn't build that social confidence when I was younger, because I felt that I was weird and outcast and just, yeah. So I think I came back having that new confidence, self-confidence, I
Great.
suppose, that like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can talk to people. Like people actually like me,
Yes. Yeah.
And I just never really doubt that. Because before I was very anxious, like if I speak to them, do they like me? Do they like the way I look? I was just like going through in my head about this doubt that
Overthinking
someone
everything
sees
by the
me,
sounds
right?
of it.
Yeah, but now I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna, I started. It's funny because, I saw people one time, like one of the girls from school saw me like a few years back, and then she was like, when you were in high school, you were so quiet. Now you can't stop talking. And I think that just that sense of confidence when I travel, and that's what I love about traveling. Just build my confidence up
Yeah.
and find myself, um, and you don't need to be liked by everyone. You can just
Yeah,
be
I
individual,
honestly, I agree with all of that, because I was the same as well as a child. I was very shy. I mean,
Mm,
people wouldn't believe that now, because I don't shut up these days. But I
same.
think that, for me as well, I think that traveling gave me such a confidence boost, that you're right, because I always felt a bit of an outcast in school with everybody else. I never seemed to fit in, and to like, I was a bit like a square peg in a round hole. And I think travel gave me that confidence that,
Yeah.
people are just people at the end of the day. And you can just go up and talk to anyone. And speaking to the listeners, anybody who's listening to this, who's never done it, they really want to, but they're worried about whether, you'll be on your own all the time, or whether you talk to people. There's just something in you that changes when you're traveling on your own, because if you're traveling on your own, you can be on your own for the whole time. That's entirely your prerogative. But you've also got the option not to be. And you just get that confidence of being able to speak to somebody, even if it just starts off with, hi, and then you build a conversation. And I think that is such a builder in other areas of life as well. Because once you've got that confidence to speak to anybody, that can take you anywhere.
Exactly. So work, my role now is mostly stakeholder management, and I need to be able to speak to people and building rapport before I talk about the actual job, right? Like the actual role that I'm trying to perform at work, and that level of rapport and the level of, like, I guess, relationship. And I think I built that over time. I'm not natural with stakeholder management, and that's something that I had to build over time. And the main part of that is from travel. Like, I learned that from traveling.
Yeah.
I was just, so I'm 39 years old, by the way. And when
That's how old I was the first time I travelled. I was 39, and while I was away, I went away for a year, and I was away, and I was 40. I turned 40 while I was away, so I
that's
was that age.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
the first time I've never been. Yeah,
I guess that would be a very different. I don't know. I think when you started older, do you find it a lot scarier than when we were younger? Because when I was young,
oh
I
my
thought I
God,
was
yes.
invincible, right? I was like, my world is
Yeah,
my oyster. It doesn't really matter. So it's kind of like I could be reckless, and it's okay, because
yeah,
if you become
yeah.
reckless, people
I'm
will
gonna live
judge you.
forever, so yeah, it doesn't matter what I do now.
And people will just, if I do something stupid, people will just be like, "Oh, she's just young," you know.
Yes,
But if you're
yes,
older, you can't really
yes.
read. But people are like, "Oh, grow up," you know.
I know, I had exactly that. It was like, well, how old do you think you are? You
Mm,
know, um, and I'm a mother. So it's about going off. I mean, I got a career break from my job, so I was lucky I could come back to it. But oh my God, yeah, at that age, I'm thinking, oh my God, I was always nearly always the oldest person everywhere.
mm.
So of course it was full of gap year kids mostly. And so yeah, before I went, I did have a chat with myself a few times, and say, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? This
Yeah.
is not for you. You're not somebody that does this, you know. But of
It was
course,
helping to overcome that fear.
it's a case of what do I fear most? Yeah. Going and experiencing something new and getting myself a little bit scared, getting myself so far out of my comfort zone that, it's like, oh my God, who am I? Or it's the worst thing that could happen to me is that you don't go. You don't experience those things. So yes, there was both of those things going on. And for me, it was a case of, oh my God, while I was away, I threw myself out of a plane and did a skydive,
Wow.
but it's exhilarating, and you can't explain all the feelings, can you, when you do this? Because you have to go and feel it for yourself and do it for yourself. But that was what it was for me. I thought I was in such a routine of eat, sleep, work, repeat, that I thought, if I carry on like this, I'm just going to go crazy, I think, because obviously, my marriage had ended and all that. My daughter was 19 at this point, so I had no young kids.
Right.
But yeah, this is what I mean. I married really young, so I kind of flipped my life. I've done everything, later in life, which has worked well for me. And I know that doesn't work for everybody, but you're
But
right
40,
about, and
like, I
that's,
mean, 40 is still young. Like, I can
yeah,
still hike and do everything that a 20-year
yeah.
old can do. I'm actually the fittest I've ever been.
And
I'm,
I'm
yeah,
64 now,
yeah.
so I've never been this fit in my life, and that's something that age brings you anyway. You're just like, I don't want to be some 80-year-old that can't stand up or get up a set of stairs or something like that. But it was, for me, it was something that I just had to do. I had to experience that, and thank God I did, because it just changed my life. Then, the way that my work, I came back from that. The transformation for me was going to uni at the age of 44.
Wow.
Because I got a degree in education. I became a trainer, and all those kinds of things. But stayed within because I worked for the NHS in the UK. But I've stayed in the NHS all that time. I've been able to move around. So yeah, it's about letting people know that don't let age stop you. because at the age of 39, that's when it all started for me, you know? So you're right. It is a different fear, but
And also, and travel gives you different perspective. So I'm from so I grew up on the Gold Coast. My whole family's still on the Gold Coast in in Australia. And so I went back there last month just to hang out with my family. I know it's not really travel or holiday, but it's still a time off from work, and it's away from my natural, I guess, habitat. I was so stressed out with work. I was working really hard, and I get stressed about everything else because I want to be the best at work. I want to be, I don't even know what I'm doing it for, but I just want to be the best at everything at work. So anxious, like barely sleeping at night. And I went away for a month, and then I was hanging out with my niece and my nephews, and I realized, what the hell was I stressed about? This is what life is about. My life is about hanging out with my friends, hanging out with my family, hanging out with my niece and nephews. And this is why, this is what I need to live for, not work. And when people work so hard their lives, they just get into this cycle of, wake up, breakfast, go to work, come home, eat dinner, wake up, and then and you just get stuck in that bubble that is your life. But you need to pull yourself out of that rut, even just for 2 weeks. Go somewhere away from your current hometown, and you will come back a different person with different perspective. I came back and I booked my trip to Bali at the end of the year.
Oh, wonderful.
And then my sister and I are going to the US and Canada. And next year, I'm turning 40 next year. The girls and I are going to Thailand. And then on my actual birthday, my family and I are going on a cruise for my birthday because I love cruises. So it's like I came from this very stressful life, like, because of work. And then I just had a break, took myself away from Melbourne. Came back and just like, life is more than work.
This is it. It's that saying, isn't it? Don't live just to work. You have to have a balance. And it doesn't have to be, traveling doesn't have to be, spending thousands and thousands on going somewhere. It could just be a few miles from you, just somewhere where it's something totally different for you to go and experience.
Yeah. And so I guess going back to my previous point of traveling, being single and being in a couple. So I am single now. I was in a 10-year relationship from like 22 to 32. And most of my travel experience would be with my ex. So it was a different type of travel. I was very young, but I felt that I was married. I was a wife. So we didn't really party that much or didn't go out, check out bars. So it was, enjoyed it. We look at this, we look at historical sites, like the main sites of the countries. And, it's cheaper because you pay half of the hotel fees. And you have someone to speak to. So, the great thing about traveling with someone is you can talk about what you see. I could be looking at the Eiffel Tower. It's like, how beautiful is this Eiffel Tower? It's just like, it's amazing. And someone will validate it. Oh my God, Paris is amazing. But if you're traveling on your own, you're just standing looking at the Eiffel Tower, take a photo of it. It's like, oh wow, it's beautiful. So it's like a different type of.
There is a difference, but I think for me, solo travel is about the pleasing yourself when you want to do it and how you want to do it. That's what, because I've just traveled with a friend out for a week, and I need to go and do something on my own now. I just need to do what I want when I want to do it. And I also find that you mix better with people when you're on your own. So that, when you're with people, you tend to just be in your own little bubble. So you've got each other to talk to. So you don't tend to go and speak to others as much as you would when you're on your own. And also, like you said, you take the photos of wherever you are, but then you've got those memories to take back to, your friends and your family, and you've got all that to talk about. So there are pros and cons for everything, aren't there?
So like with you're right, like when I was with my ex, it was just like basically we're attached to the hip. where like it was just the two of us. It was like us, against the world. We traveled. We didn't really. I mean, we interacted with some people, but we didn't really. It was just like the two of us, and that went on for 10 years. I truly enjoyed all of that. And sometimes, like when you get into a relationship, that's all you kind of know. You just like go into the rhythm, like, oh yeah, I'm happy, and I'm all. That's all I know. But then at 32, decided to leave that relationship. And when I got the money back, because we've got a house, we sold it, got the money from that. I was like, that's it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do things that I felt that I couldn't do when I was in a relationship. Everyone else did Contiki during gap year, but always want to do a group tour. So I got, I'm too old for Contiki at 32, but I did top deck. So I went to Africa, like bucket list destination. I went to Africa at 32 years old, and and I just loved it. It was just, I guess I felt many things during that travel. It's the first time in 10 years I traveled on my own without my ex.
Yeah, how do you deal with that then, Jojo? Because that's a massive deal, that is. When you've been with somebody for so long and that's the only type of travel that you've known, and suddenly you take yourself off on this big tour, which is fantastic and amazing. So how do you deal with that? Were there high and low points while you were away?
So the highs of that one is, again, I was able to do things that I felt that I couldn't do when I was in a relationship. That would be going on a group tour, going to bars and drink. I love heights, so I like, I jump off like the cliffs. I went on, I did the Victoria Falls jump. So, and I did a lot of things that I felt that my partner was encouraging me not to do, so I didn't do them. And like, talking to random people for a long time.
I love that.
It's not that he didn't want me to do it, but it was kind of like, it was like unsaid, unverbalized kind of rule.
Oh, yes, I get it. Yeah.
But the lows is more the loneliness sometimes, because I was so used to having him in my life. Where, especially like in the tour, there will be couples there. They always have someone. So there's moment where, because there's a lot of long trips from like going from one country to another, it would just be nice to have someone next to you and you just chat or just cuddle or just, when you like, or bitch about someone from the tour bus and you don't have that, right? and so there was...
How did you deal with that though, Jojo? Like you said, you were missing having your ex there for certain reasons, but how do you cope with that then?
Yeah, so like, I guess the trip was, the reason I went on the trip was to find myself and to detach myself from that relationship. I want to be able to prove myself that I don't need to be in a relationship to be happy. Like, whilst maybe I will, one day, it's like 6 years on now, like one day I will find a romantic relationship. I want to be able to be happy on my own. And one of the process of being happy on my own is to be able to sit with loneliness on my own. And so I knew I'm going to be lonely. So what I did was I write. So I don't really do diaries, but I was just like started writing. So I could be like, say, I just felt lonely, or I just didn't like someone that I met. I would just like write and bitch about someone on my diary, or write about what happened that day, what's great about that day. So basically, like writing a journal was become my friend, kind of like replicating what I would have with my boyfriend at the time, where I tell him, this is my day. It was really good. I saw this, I just saw this giraffe just walking down the road. It was magnificent. So I did a lot of journaling. And when moments were, and I spoke to my parents and my sister when I felt lonely, but there are definitely, because especially like really fresh from out of relationship, that was very hard to detox from my body, and I was very heartbroken. And I had to sit with it, and I was just like, Jojo, sit with it. It will pass. Maybe today is not a good day, but it will pass. And in the next moment, I will see a giraffe or an elephant. I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm here for. And then you get excited. And I think like to answer your question, short, like in a short term, is like in a short way, the way I process loneliness is just sit with it and feel it, and it's
Yes.
accepting that it's normal,
Yeah.
and remember why I did it in the first place. The reason
Yeah.
I did it was to find myself and
Yeah.
to be happy on my own.
And it
And I
doesn't
was
last
able
too
to
long,
achieve
does it?
that. Yeah. And I
No.
want to be able to heal from that relationship. And now I heal too much and I don't like anyone.
Well, that could be a good thing as well, though, Jojo, honestly.
Yeah.
It's good.
So,
That means you're so comfortable with yourself that you
yeah.
don't need, and that's exactly the place that I'm in as well. I'm so comfortable with being on my own. I don't feel lonely most of the time. Sometimes I can feel a bit alone, but yeah, I love that what you said earlier about using a diary, a journal, to write everything down, get all your thoughts out and write it down on paper. And even though you might feel, and it is, when you first start and you could go to a restaurant and everybody's in couples or groups or whatever, you're a bit like, oh God, there's me, here's the sad on my own. Especially for me, we're talking 24, 25 years ago when it wasn't the norm to go traveling on your own.
Yeah.
It's a lot more normal now with the uptake of women, older women, going solo traveling is enormous. The percentage compared to men. I can't remember the percentage now, but I know it's something like 46%, I think. So it's much more normal now. Whereas back then it wasn't. But those first times that you do, like now, it's water off a duck's back. I'll go in anywhere. I don't mind going to a bar and have a drink if I want one. So it's water off a duck's back now. But those first times that you do that, it is a bit disconcerting, isn't it? And you just think, oh God, everyone's looking at me. So next time I'm just going to take a book and put it on the table as if I'm reading or something. And once you've done it 2 or 3 times, you really don't give a damn, do you?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like at the start, it's funny. This is one of the main things that I learned about life, and also maybe aging comes with it. When I was younger, I always think about what people think of me. Maybe I'm a loser sitting in the restaurant on my own, sitting, up at the bar, drinking my cocktail on my own. And in my head, I'm always in my head, oh, people are looking at me. People think I'm a loser. Guess what, guys? No one gives a shit about you. Like, they are so into their own life, whoever they're talking about. No one actually looks at you. No one thinks about you. So it's all in your mind. They're thinking those insecurities or those worries, they're actually not real. And once I've learned that, I go to even in Melbourne, I go to the bar and I have a favorite bar over here on the river. I go there on my own and watch people watch. And sometimes I meet people that sitting next to me and I have a really good conversation with them. But if that happens, I just sit there on my own drinking my cocktail, and I actually enjoyed it. And
no, exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. You're so comfortable with yourself that you can do that. And also, I think that, we have all these stories in our head that we tell ourselves. Oh gosh, everyone's looking, which you just said. But also, look around you. Look around you at the couples who are sat there and are not saying a word to each other. And they might be looking at you, but I tell you why they're looking at you. It's because they wish they were you. That's if anybody's looking at you, it's because they're wishing they were you and not sat there and stuck in some relationship where nobody's talking to each other. They've been with each other for forever. They're thinking, I wish I was sat up there on a cocktail on my own.
And I'm very interested in human behavior. So that's the reason why I have the podcast, is because I'm very interested in human behavior. So I can be just sitting at the cocktail bar looking around people watch, and I'm starting to analyze what they're thinking and what they're doing and what their relationship is like. And I'm just I'm just very interested on watching people and talking to people. And and I think I didn't really get to that comfortable stage of my own if it wasn't for traveling. Traveling allows me to see the world that is Australia is very safe and it's a good country, and I love living here. I will always going to be living in Australia, and going to different places, for example in Africa, where they have nothing. You will see these kids walking around with barefoot, but they're just so happy. They are absolutely they got the biggest smile. While in the Western world, we're taking antidepressants every day, but we have everything that we've got, and you give that different perspective that we have like in the Western world, we have everything that that we need, but yet we're not happy. And why is that? It is just because we're just stuck in this bubble. You need to get out and get a different perspective, that the world is so big and so diverse, and will give you a lot of knowledge and learn so much about others as well as yourself, and you become happier that way. And traveling also allows you to connect with different people and learn how to communicate with them in different ways. It could be, now I can speak to a 1-year-old, to a 100-year-old, and I have something to talk about. I can talk to them for an hour, at different ages, and that was just because of practice. Because I've done it so many times, and then you get, it's just the knowledge that you hear from stories from other people when you speak to them. And I really, as I said, I'm very interested in human behavior, so when they give me the stories, I just learn so much from them. And sometimes you think you're doing so great in your life, and then you hear someone's story, it's like, oh my god, how did that happen?
It's true though. I love it, and that's what I love about this podcast, is listening to everybody's experiences of their, because everyone's got a different story to tell. But at the same time, we all have similar feelings or worries or anxieties, but we all deal with things differently. But yeah, I love that. I love that. And I'm such a people watcher as well. I'm really into all of that sort of stuff. So tell us then, so you've been on your travels. What about your podcast? What made you start your podcast?
So, because I can talk underwater, I can just talk forever. Everyone, so my friends was like, oh, you need to do a TED talk. And also I love, because I love hearing other people's stories. Also, I love hearing from experts about theories. Could be, for example, attachment theory. So, and I have a psychotherapist on the pod, and she does this every single day and explain to us like the attachment styles and how it affects us in our adult life. And that was just like an experience from a professional, like telling me about like a professional person. And I think it's just, and also that I feel really grateful that these people want to be on my podcast and want to speak to me. And I go, you are, giving up your time for me to speak about your expertise or your experience, and I just feel really grateful for that. And they're all over the world. They're from the US, the UK, Africa, also all over Australia as well. And that, storytelling, it makes me tick. And I said, and also my listeners, they listen to that and go, oh, I didn't see, for example, I know about this topic, but I didn't see it in that light. They see it in a different perspective. And some of them, I did an episode about ADHD, and 2 of my listeners actually get, I said, I'm going to go to a psychiatrist and get properly diagnosed. And that, that episode prompt them to do that. So it's, it is really good feedback where, like, I get a lot from my podcast as well as my listeners. And also another thing that I found in the podcast is it's a lot of work. Not many people know how much work podcasting is.
I know,
So you do finding a guest, recording, editing, social media, advertising, all that stuff. And on top of a full-time job, and for me, I put out an episode every Wednesday, and be consistent every single Wednesday. I have an episode. That's it taught me time management, like commitment, and be able to prioritize my life. So be able to achieve what I've committed to. And I'm a person that once I committed to something, I'm not gonna break that commitment. And I think it's a good life skill. Like I've committed to work, I will do everything. Like I'm also not gonna do a half-assed job. I'm gonna do in my best of my ability. I'm gonna, maybe, of course, it's not gonna be a professional podcast, but it's the best I could possibly do with the resources that I've got. I'm not gonna do a half-assed job. And having that level of work ethic that will come through to my friendship group, to perhaps romantic relationship, as well as my work. And I think that that subconscious level of skills that you build creating the podcast is invaluable. And I think most podcasters will say the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, mine is, it's just something I do in my part time. I've got no fancy setup here. It's just my laptop and me. And I agree with you, all the guests I have on, I just love it, because they all bring such value. And something you just said about having experts on the show, my season 2, because I'll be bringing season 1 to an end next month. In season 2, that's what I want to do. I want to get more experts in for those people who are anxious and confident, but they want to go solo traveling. And I want to get some experts in on around that, about how they can cope with that, to get out there. And I think I think your podcast will evolve, won't it? Because I started, I don't even know if I could look at the first one now, because obviously mine are all visual as well, I think they're all on YouTube now too. So I haven't gone on and looked. I'm thinking I can't even look at the first one, I don't think, because it'll be so different to how it is now and the way I am as well, because I was like, I need to do this, I need to do that. And it's like, after a few times, you're like, no, you don't need to do this, just let it flow and all of that. So it's a great learning curve, isn't it? Around how you speak with people, how you connect with people. And then I think the best podcasts are podcasts where it really does flow as well.
And natural. And
no, absolutely. And like you said, all the work done with it, because you just think this is the best bit, isn't it? Talking. This is the best bit of the podcast. And then you've got to go and do all the editing and all the social media.
I wish I had the money for someone to edit it for me.
Oh, I would love to, yeah. I would love to. So I'm with you on that. And I've listened to a few of your episodes and they're really, really useful, and really good listening, good chat, And I think that makes a good podcast as well, because it means people will want to listen more to it as well.
Yeah.
And
also for me, I also want the people that go on the pod, like the people that interview, enjoy it as well. Like they enjoy talking to me.
Yes.
And I've got really good feedback when they speak to me, because they feel that they're not being interviewed. It was just a chat, at my lounge room, drinking wine. And that was really good feedback for me. And, we just laugh and carrying on. And I really like that. And the podcast allows me to access people that I would have not accessed in my normal life.
Absolutely agree with all of that. And do you know what, Jojo? I think that's a really good point to bring the podcast to an end, this recording to an end. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. There might have to be a podcast 2. We might have to do another one. I just find that everyone I talk to, there's always more. We can always talk more about more things, So there might be a second one coming up. But thank you so much. And like I said, to everybody listening, I will put all the links to Jojo, to a podcast as well, in the show notes, so that you can access her however you need to. So once again, thank you for listening today, and thank you for joining me. Thanks, Jojo.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
And that concludes this episode of Wanderlust Diaries, celebrating the fearless spirit of solo female travellers who are 40 and beyond. I hope you found inspiration, valuable insights, and a renewed sense of wanderlust. Thank you to all our incredible listeners who have joined us on this exciting journey. Remember, age should never stop your quest for adventure, because the world is waiting for you to explore its wonders. And don't forget to join our community on social media to connect with fellow travellers, and subscribe and review us on your favourite podcast platform. All links are in the show notes. Keep dreaming, keep exploring, and stay fearless. Until next time, this is Terri Reynolds signing off from Wanderlust Diaries. Psst, don't keep me a secret. Please tell your friends and fellow travellers.